Good afternoon, evening, whatever time, whatever you're doing. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're surviving in this pandemic and this new world that we're slowly going into. I have been thinking, I've been stuck inside because of the snow. It snowed in April in Maine. It just does that sometimes. 51 day, sunny, beautiful, 50 and snowing the next day, miserable. There's a huge difference between in 50s, I guess. Anyway, so I've been stuck inside, and I was thinking, I wanted to do another hit list of obtainable places that I could go. Last hit list, I knew I wasn't going to get permission to go to some of those places just because their location, the history behind them. But it's still fun to, think and, wonder what could happen. So this list is things or places that I could possibly go, like in the next digging season, a couple of digging seasons, all pending on funding, time, all pending on money, how much time I have, my college. I can't let it interfere with my college courses. So it all depends, but they're all of them are obtainable places to go. I can easily ask permission to go there and get it, or I can just go there and do metal detecting or go exploring. This is my video. This is I think it's 5 or 6, whatever. The places I would love to go and could go if I wanted to. This video is a longer video. That's my warning. I will try to make it not dry as possible, but I cover all sorts of different things. I cover the failed expedition of Benedict Arnold, a couple spots there. That's I really want to do that. Maine public land, not public, mill land, mill property, which is public and private. It's weird. You can get access to it easily, but I'll cut you'll see in the video about that. Pirates, the outer islands of Maine, which is, I don't say it in there, but it's pretty much the outer islands or the coast of Maine. There's a whole bunch of pirate activity that I would love to go check out on these islands. And just some abandoned cabins in Maine. Maine is filled with lakes, and people have been coming to Maine to vacation for centuries, without at least 200 centuries. So there is a whole bunch of abandoned cabins. And I say that because that comes with a warning. If you're going exploring, you can explore these abandoned cabins, but there's some properties that are protected, that are private property, and people pour a lot of money into these cabins, especially with their security systems, because they've had issues in the past of people breaking into cabins. So don't break into cabins is what I'm getting at. Warning, be careful of where you go. Make sure it is abandoned, and make sure it's not, if there's a posted sign or no trespassing sign, you either call the number that's on the trespassing sign or no posted sign, or you just don't go on there. All right, mainly digger out, enjoy my video. Happy Easter. Before we start this video, let's talk about Operation ReBoot again. I want to talk about Operation ReBoot. Operation ReBoot Outdoors is an organization, a nonprofit organization for veterans to get them out into the woods, to take them out hunting and fishing. It is ran by Dan and Nicole Waite. If you are interested in Operation ReBoot Outdoors, they have a YouTube channel where they discuss Maine outdoors and how they help veterans. They discuss their organization, and they have a coffee time or a coffee talk that happen. They have it every week. Different veterans come on. Dan talks about his struggles coming back from Iraq. Dan has 2 combat deployments. He's an Army veteran. I'm not pushing any merchandise, and I get none of this profits. All the profits go to Operation ReBoot. I would love to retrace Benedict Arnold's failed expedition through Maine. The expedition started in Massachusetts. I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't go there. This map isn't really a true depiction of the trek that they took, but it's good enough. So while in Maine, when they hit Maine, they at the very bottom right, went to Pittsburgh, or went through Pittsburgh, went into the Gardner area, which back then was, I think it was called Gardnerton or something like that. But they stayed there for a couple of days, or probably a couple of weeks, building boats, and then went to Augusta, and then went to Winslow and Waterville, and went to many other places on the way to Quebec. But I'm not worried about those places. So Cambridge in Massachusetts, not worried about that. Newburyport, not really worried about that. Fort Western is in Augusta. Fort Halifax is in Winslow/Waterville. After Waterville is the Teutonic Falls. Teutonic Falls is in Waterville. That's whitewater, so they couldn't pass that. So they had to go to what they call the Great Carry Place, where they picked up all their boats and walked across land to Lake Meguntic. I can't even say it. This list of places just shows that their trek was naughty. It was horrible. It was destined to fail. First, you're going upstream, up the Kennebec, and then you got a port, long distances with heavy boats that are waterlogged, or go through whitewater, which none of them knew how to boat through whitewater. So horrible expedition, meant to fail. All my information is off WikiLinks. This is wrong. I had to correct it. This, from what it sounds like Fort Halifax is before. If you're going up the Kennebec, you're going to first hit Fort Western, which is in Augusta, and then you're going to hit Fort Halifax in Winslow. Augusta, which is down to your right, and Waterville, Winslow area, which is upper left. Fort Halifax in Winslow, and the Teutonic Falls, which is whitewater, in Waterville, not that far apart. So it just proves that they got their areas mixed up. The next place I would love to go exploring, and it can be easily done, is Dixfield, Maine. I'm using this photo and this picture because just to verify the spelling of Dixfield and that it does exist. When I tell people about Dixfield, they kind of give me the side eye. My stepmother and father live in Dixfield, and they live right down the road from this place. I couldn't find an actual picture of it. This is a drawing, obviously, but it's just, Dixfield's an interesting place. It was established in the 1700s as Holman Town. There's a whole bunch of original families that still live in Dixfield and have a wealth of knowledge, historical knowledge. Another picture, just a building that I've seen multiple times in my time in Dixfield. An interesting place. It's just interesting. Funny story, I went to high school in Dixfield for about 6 months, and this building was still considered the high school. It is no longer the high school, but I went there in the late 90s, and this is where I went. Another adventure I'd love to go on is to go to the paper mill company land in Maine. Paper mill companies own a lot of land in Maine, and there's easy access to it. You just have to sign a list saying you're not going to sue them for breaking a leg or whatever. But there's a lot of, obviously, historical action that has happened in the northern woods in Maine, from logging camps to just history in general. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and I would love to go and take a trip onto this land and go explore. I would love to take my metal detector, go camping, and just explore. Paper mills and logging has been going on in Maine for centuries. Paper mill companies have been around for over 100 years. There's so much opportunity for metal detecting in those areas, because no one really goes into those areas unless they're hunting or they're fishing. But metal detecting, from what I've heard and what I've seen, there's a lot of cellar holes. There's a lot of old logging camps. I really want to go up there and check this stuff out. There's so much in northern Maine to explore. It would just, I could make at least a whole nother 3 videos about it, or a whole series about exploring northern Maine. Next, I'm going to talk about pirates in Maine, because I love pirates and I love talking about pirates in Maine. So if you're going to talk about pirates in Maine, you need to talk about Penobscot Bay. Penobscot Bay, a whole bunch of pirate activity back in the day. Castine had a whole bunch of just activity in general. French activity. Castine was probably one of the first settlements in New England. It was settled first by the French and then by the English. I would love to go metal detecting there, or just take a trip. It would be like a whole month trip to Castine. It would be awesome. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Penobscot Bay is a graveyard of shipwrecks. Throughout the centuries, there's a ton of stuff laying on the bottom of Penobscot Bay. All these islands in Penobscot Bay, which most of them I cannot pronounce or say, have had pirate activity on them or have known pirate activity. Awesome. So talking more about pirates, in Machias River, or on Machias River, or Machias Port, there is a pirate fort somewhere around that area. It was made out of wood. There's also a reported treasure there. I would love to find both of them. That'd be awesome. Other than that, there's not a whole lot in Machias. Isle of Shoals, which is off Kittery a little bit, like right on the Maine and New Hampshire border, definitely reported pirate activity, and I think they even found some treasure on there too. That'd be awesome. Swans Island, there's no reported pirate treasure, but it is an abandoned island with historical houses on it. I don't think you can go metal detecting on there, but you can definitely camp out on that island. Like I said, there's no reported pirate activity, but I guaranteed someone had to stop there sometime. Some pirates stopped there. It was a big place to stop in the 1700s, 1800s. The next and last part is the abandoned cabins in Maine in the lake regions. Maine might as well just be considered a lake region. There's so many lakes in Maine. I'm just going to cover some of the lakes that I have been on or lived on and know of abandoned cabins. I would suggest, if you're going to one of these lakes and going to look at the abandoned cabins, there's some cabins that are not abandoned. There's some cabins that people pour a lot of money into. Do not mess with them. It's private property as usual, but there's some people who are really protective of their cabins because they've had issues in the past. You can also rent some of these cabins for fairly cheap, extremely cheap, especially during the summertime, because people want to draw people to these regions, but they're cheap. Our first lake, and it's actually a pond, but it's large enough to be a lake, is Hola Pond. It is 11 miles away from Jackman, and it's just a cool place. It's out in the middle of nowhere. You're on logging roads, so you have to look out for logging trucks, who they don't care. You get out, just get out of their way. You hear one coming, move, just move off into the side of the road. Once again, this is Holub Lake. I would often go to Holub Lake, or my family would go to Holub Lake, 11 miles back in the woods. There's no one out there to bug you at all. Occasionally you'll see somebody, but they don't want to talk to you because they're out in the woods. So what I'm trying to show here is, in the middle of the lake is a pretty large island with a mountain on top of it. There is a large camp, and this is from a 11-year-old's memory, 15 to 11-year-old's memory, or 11-year-old to 15-year-old's memory. It is in the middle of the island relatively, and there are multiple different camps to this one camp. I remember it being owned, but I also remember it being pretty abandoned. Where we camped is where I circled. I don't remember exactly where I camped because this was over 20 years ago, but you can't miss it. It's not hard to get out there. Just take the logging road. There are multiple abandoned camps on this lake anyway. It's out in the middle of nowhere. The Belgrade Lakes region, there are so many different lakes here. I am lucky to have a relative that lives on one of these lakes, and when it gets warmer, I will go out and go exploring and metal detecting. Fortunately, this place is less than 5 miles away, maybe 10 miles away from my home in Waterville. Belgrade Lakes is an amazing region with a lot of fishing history. Greater Pond is it's a huge lake with a lot of old camps on it. I would warn, like, the more south you get in Maine, the more populated places are, which means there's a lot less abandoned cabins. Anabestacook Lake, great fishing. All these lakes have a great history of fishing on them. But I lived on this lake for about a year when I was maybe 9. I don't know how, I was young. But there's a lot of Native American activity on this lake and on this island. There's actually, I don't know if it's true or not. My uncle told me this ghost story about it. I won't go into the ghost story, but mainly because I don't know if it's true or not. But this is a huge lake in around Waterville, not Waterville, Winthrop, Monmouth area. So quick fishing tale story. Years ago, they used to stock this lake with salmon. So my dad caught a salmon one time, a long time ago, but it was a decent sized salmon. This is Moranacook Lake. It's not labeled because it's a fairly large lake. And I know I didn't live on this lake or around it. This lake is near Winthrop. It's a huge lake with different parts sprawling out everywhere. But there was an island on it that I went to when I was younger that we used to completely abandon, and we used to go paintballing on the island. So there are some spots and lakes in Lower Maine, central to Lower Maine, that it may be fairly populated around the lake, but some of the spots are abandoned, or some of the cabins are abandoned. Sebago Lake, which is near Freeport and Portland. Sebago Lake State Park. If you stay at this state park, you will have access to both Freeport and Portland if you want to do the Flatlander thing and check those spots out. But this lake is huge. As you can see, I just put the name of this lake in and it showed up. I didn't even have to zoom in on the lake. It is very large. It is a beautiful lake. It's an amazing lake. I would bring a larger boat and not a canoe on this lake. But there are multiple different islands, multiple different places to explore or metal detect around or in this lake. It is fairly large. Amazing fishing. I will say that. I've caught a couple of different fish out of this, a lot of pike out of this lake, but it's just an amazing spot.